Listen, my friend, you have done everything right. The certifications, the courses, the coaching, the therapy, the personal development, the damn vision boards. You've built something real, something people respect, something that looks really good from the outside. And yet there's still something that feels off. You can't quite name it, but it's there. That voice at 2 a.m. that whispers, is this it? That heaviness on Sunday night that you blame on just being tired. That moment when someone congratulates you on your success and you smile and say thank you while something on the inside goes, oh, if they only knew. Here's what I want you to know. There's nothing wrong with you, but there is something running your life that you can't see. I would even say there's something ruining your life that you can't see. It's choosing your clients, setting your prices, deciding how you push and how little you rest. It's also what's writing your entire business plan. It's creating your career path. And I bet you don't even know it's there because, like all of us, it's in your blind spot. A client said something to me once that completely stopped me in my tracks. He said, Nick, you helped me see what I didn't know I didn't know. Now, this man had built a $1 billion company. He's been in leadership for decades, completely brilliant. And yet, there was a pattern running his entire life that he couldn't see. So today, my friend, we're going to find yours. Not with strategy, not with another framework to memorize. We are going to find the pattern you've been living inside of for so long that it just feels like a regular Saturday. So let's do that together. You've probably heard me talk about my Wall Street years if you've been in my universe for a while. I spent 15 years climbing, proving, Audi in the driveway, all the markers that said, Nick, you made it. But here's what I didn't understand until a few years ago, like embarrassingly recently. I always thought my problem was burnout, that I was working too hard, classic overachiever stuff. But that wasn't the pattern. Here's what the pattern was. I was terrified of failure, and so terrified, in fact, that I realize now that I never reached for anything that I might not get. I only grabbed for the next run, the sure thing, because I didn't trust myself enough to take a leap of faith. So I would over deliver to the point of exhaustion because I needed to prove that I was valuable. And I call that dedication. I called it being a team player. I called that, and I had this on my resume, being great at multitasking. But I didn't call it what it actually was. It was a people-pleasing pattern with a side of judgment, and it was slowly suffocating me. It cost me 3 years of chronic pain, of fibromyalgia, a string of toxic relationships, depression that I just couldn't shake until one morning I woke up with that elephant of dread on my chest, not wanting to keep doing what I had been doing anymore. Because the version of life that I had created, it was actually a prison disguised as success. And here's the wild part. I still almost didn't see it. I told myself I was just tired, I was just stressed, I just needed a vacation. Because that's how our blind spots work. They don't feel like patterns. They just feel like our reality, kind of like a fish in water. Fish doesn't know it's wet. Just feels like a regular Tuesday. So let me ask you something. What have you been calling dedication that might actually be a pattern? What have you been calling realistic that might actually just be fear? What have you been saying is just how things are That might actually be a survival strategy that you created when you were 7. Because here's how it works. Those patterns that kept you safe at 7, they're the ones keeping you stuck at 47. And no matter how hard you try, you can't outwork a blind spot. I've tried. You can't outsmart it. You can't hire your way around it. You have to see it. Okay, so let's get real for a second. In 13 years of doing this work with solid professionals and conscious leaders, I've found that blind spots tend to live in one of 4 places. And I call those the 4 pillars. And here's what I noticed. Most people have 2 or 3 of these pillars pretty solid, but there's usually one that's on shaky ground, one that's creating an invisible ceiling for them. And you might not think that that is a big deal, right? Like, Nick, 85% of everything's working out for me. And I'm like, yes, great, celebrate. But have you ever walked like 2 miles with a little rock in your shoe? Probably not, because you would stop right away and obviously take the stone out, right? So think of it that way. Your blind spot, it might be small, but it's the equivalent of a small stone right under your sole in your shoe. And with every step, it keeps making that bottom of your foot more and more raw. So let's walk through these together. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to pay attention to your body, not your brain, your body. Notice which one makes your stomach tighten, then one that makes you want to fast forward through this episode. Notice the one that you want to argue with me about. Or, and here's my favorite one, notice the one where you get inconveniently interrupted and you have to step away from this episode because that is your subconscious in action. And that's probably the pillar that your blind spot is living in. All right, so the first blind spot is what I call a values blind spot. And honestly, this one is friggin' sneaky because it doesn't look like a problem. It looks like success. But here's how you know. You keep saying yes to things that drain you and then tell yourself, well, everyone else does it. It's just part of the job. And you're successful on paper, but something feels disconnected. It feels hollow, like you're playing a role in someone else's movie. Or it can show up with this feeling where you have to change your pricing or change your offer or change your job, but then you feel guilty. Like, who are you to want more? That one I really resonated with. In fact, it was guilt that kept me in finance for so long because I felt guilty for being dissatisfied with the success that I had achieved. But here's what's actually happening. All right. So don't get all guilty all over yourself. I want you to think about it in this way. Pretend that you're at a buffet and you're standing there and everyone else is filling your plate. Your parents, your industry, your mentor, society, Johnny from down the street. And they've all piled on what they think that you should want. And you're standing there looking at this overflowing plate thinking, why am I not happy with this? Why am I not satisfied? There's so much here. I don't even like frog legs. And to top it off, then you feel obligated to clean the plate. No wonder you're dissatisfied. You've been eating food that you never even ordered for yourself. Now, if that's you, if you've been building on borrowed blueprints instead of your own foundation, your blind spot isn't strategy, it's values. You've been living by other people's rules. And you know what? Don't feel bad because so many of us have done this. But no amount of tactics will fix a cracked foundation. So the second blind spot that I want to share with you is all about intuitive discernment. And you've probably heard me talk about that before. This is the one that will leave you kicking yourself because you knew, you knew better, but you didn't trust yourself. You had that gut feeling about that hire, something felt off, but their resume was perfect and the references checked out. So you override your intuition for logic. And then 6 months later, you're dealing with the fallout, the drama, the expensive mistake, and you knew from the first interview. Or, maybe it's a client, a partnership, a pivot where you were sensing for months, but you kept gathering more data instead of trusting what you already knew. I know I've been there. I'm sure you have too. I used to watch this on Wall Street, and I worked with portfolio managers who worked and managed eight-figure portfolios. Now, the best ones, here was their secret, is they didn't just read financial statements, they could read between the lines. I remember one manager who wouldn't touch mortgage-backed securities. And this was during the gold rush. Everyone was jumping on board because the numbers looked great. But I remember him telling me something felt off and he wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole, but he couldn't put it into words. Yet he trusted it anyway. And then the mortgage-backed scandal hit. And, and the other managers, on average, took 30% losses if they were lucky. But our clients were protected because he trusted his gut over the data that everybody else was following. So if you're constantly second guessing yourself, outsourcing knowledge all the time, even though your track record proves you know what you're doing, your blind spot isn't more information, it's trusting your intuition. And that comes through intuitive discernment. Okay. If this one is hitting you right now, if your stomach just did that flip, go take a diagnostic. The links are in the show notes. It takes 2 minutes. I'll be here when you get back. Now, the third blind spot that I want to share with you is about energetic alignment. And I want to say this with so much love and understanding because if this is you, I know you're already running on fumes right now. You hit your revenue goals, but you're too exhausted to enjoy it. Everyone thinks you're crushing it, but secretly, you dread Mondays. You've built something impressive, but you're running on cortisol, caffeine, and sheer willpower. And somewhere deep inside, you know that this pace isn't sustainable, but you call it dedication. You call it the price of success. You call it just how it is in my industry. But here's the brutal truth, because I'm your friend. That's not strength. That's not resilience. That's resignation. Success shouldn't deplete you. If you're exhausted after every win, if you have nothing left for the people that you love at the end of each day, if you're borrowing from your future self to fund your current hustle, your blind spot isn't time management. It's that you're running on fumes and broken boundaries, and your future you, she's pissed about this arrangement. Now, here's the fourth blind spot I want you to consider, and it's all about strategic execution. And this one's tricky because you're going to think to yourself, no, Nick, I've got strategy, I have a plan, I've got goals, and I'm sure you do. But here's the test I want you to take. If you stepped away for 2 weeks, completely unplugged, would things keep running without you? Or does everything grind to a halt because you're the one holding it all together? And now, whether this is your business, your team, your department, your family, if it all depends on you, that's not a plan, that's not strategy, that's not organization, it's a trap. And you're the hamster on the wheel. You're the one answering every email, making every decision, holding every relationship together. And you can't scale past your own capacity. As much as you hate to hear this, you are only human. And the truth is you've got opportunities knocking on your door, people waiting, ideas that you're sitting on, desires that you're craving to unleash, but you can't say yes to any of it because you're maxed out. And then it just kind of feels like you're valuable, you're important, you're in demand. But here's the thing I had to learn the hard way, and I hope you don't have to, is that's not a badge of honor. That's a ceiling. That's the maximum of your capacity. So now when you think about those four blind spots, which one made something shift in your chest? Which one are you arguing with yourself about in your head? Which one do you want to dismiss as not that bad? Or here's where it's even worse. You're justifying it because it's not as bad as it used to be. That's your blind spot. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're welcome. Okay, but seriously, the moment you see your blind spot, everything changes. And no, it's not because you suddenly have all the answers. It's because you're finally asking the right questions. So let me tell you about that CEO I mentioned earlier. You remember I referenced him before, that eight-figure company founder, but I don't know that I told you what actually happened in our session. He came to me trying to figure out how to convince his board to pay him for what he was owed. He'd built this massive company, poured his heart and soul into it, and he wasn't even being paid fairly. He was tired, frustrated, even started to lose his spark. And when he got on the call, what we focused on for that 45 minutes was not strategy, was not negotiations, was not tactics. We did value work, values. And by the end of that call, his mindset had completely pivoted. When he left, he wasn't asking for a paycheck anymore. He was designing a seven-figure buyout plan so that he could exit the company to move on to his next passion project. Same CEO, same board, same company, but a completely different question. And that's what happens when you see your blind spot. The question changes. And that's really powerful. He went from how do I get what I'm worth here to what do I actually want? And what's the strategic plan to get there? And essentially, he went from asking permission to claiming ownership in 45 minutes. So I know we tend to think that this type of work takes a really long time, but I want to share with you that it doesn't. I've seen people transform in minutes. When that light bulb goes off, when things click, oh my God, you are so powerful. As soon as you have that breakthrough, you're like Moses parting the seas because you finally see it and then you know what you didn't know. And then the game changes completely. And you know what? I'm speaking not just from seeing thousands of clients do it, but that happened for me too. When I finally saw my people-pleasing patterns, like really saw it, well, first I felt a little embarrassed that I hadn't seen it. So if you feel that way as well, no judgies. But when I saw it, I stopped trying to fix my exhaustion with better time management, more productivity hacks, and more hiring more people. I started asking different questions like, why am I saying yes to this? Whose approval am I trying to earn? Oof. And that one hit hard and it hit home because it was really at the core of it for me. And another question that I would ask is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid of disappointing others? And I tell you, within weeks, like not years, weeks, everything started to shift. Not because my circumstances had changed dramatically, but because I could finally see the pattern of what had been running the show. And your patterns, they're not your prison, they're a roadmap. A roadmap showing you exactly where your power has been hiding. And what's fun is the moment that you see it, you stop wandering and you start walking towards that ultimate goal. Okay, so strap in because here's the part where I'm going to be annoyingly direct because I know what you'll be tempted to do next. Nothing. Nothing. You're going to think, that was a great episode, really resonated. And then you're going to close the app, you go back to your overflowing inbox. You're going to go back to your clients who drain you. You're going to go back to the hustle that's slowly suffocating you. And you're going to tell yourself, I'll get to it later. I'll think about it. I'll circle back when things calm down. All right. You don't need to hear it from me, but I'm going to tell you anyway because we're friends. Reality check. Things are never going to calm down. And that permission that you're waiting for, it's not coming. Nobody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you've worked hard enough. You can stop now. You can finally build something that feels like it's actually yours. Only you can give yourself that permission. And you have to do it even when you're scared, even when you're busy, even when your calendar is overflowing and your to-do list has no end. Because if you wait until it's the right time, you're going to wait forever. And I get it. I mean, trust me, I get it. I waited until my body made the decision for me. So, as your friend, I am begging you, don't wait for a breakdown to choose a breakthrough. So, here's what I'm inviting you to do. Take the four-pillar diagnostic. It's 12 questions, 2 minutes. You'll find out exactly which pillar your blind spot is hiding in: values, intuition, energy, or strategy. Now, just imagine knowing exactly where to focus, not guessing, not trying another random strategy, but you knowing deep inside with complete crystal clarity where that crack is in your foundation. So I'll leave the link for you in the show notes because you can't change what you can't see. Now, if this episode hit a nerve, if something that I said made you feel uncomfortable or defensive, or like you wanted to turn it off and listen to something easier, good. That discomfort, that's not resistance. That's recognition. Something is ready to shift, and I'm excited for that for you. So until next time, trust your intuition, take aligned action, and keep leading with soul.